Welcome back to Additional Ink. It is time for your next drop of Additional Ink. I'm joined here today by Eric Ocean's Tempest and Forrest Miller, who made top 32 in DLC Richmond. Thank you so much, Forrest, for coming on and hanging out with me and Eric. I know Eric's local to you, so you probably see him way too much.
I do.
I don't know.
I still think he's yet to beat me.
Ooh.
Just throwing that out there.
Ooh.
But thank you guys for having me today.
So tell us a little about yourself, Forrest, for those who don't know you.
Sure. So I'm located here in Southwest Florida, Ohio, born and raised. Lorcana is not my first TCG. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Semi-competitively, came close, kind of bubbled out of a couple of the higher end tournaments at several regional top eights, all kind of when I was a kid. Worked for Alter Reality Games, if anybody knows of ARG back in the day. Kind of helped them grow before they became what they did with the Circuit Series. Relocated to Florida here during the pandemic. My fiance Sarah and I were looking for something fun to do. We're Disney lovers, we're Disney pass holders, and when Lorcana came out, it was kind of a perfect fit. We couldn't find anything in first chapter. It was Rise of the Floodborn. We finally found some product, and we bought some starter decks. And she enjoyed the art, and she found the love for ripping packs. And so then, kind of the rest was history. So her first tournament and my first tournament was Inklands Stitch Set Champs.
Good time.
Managed to win one of the two that I played. And so then kind of the rest was history. Went to a couple DLCs and, obviously now we're here.
Awesome. First chapter was a rough time period.
Yes, it was. Yeah, we found 4 loose boosters at a random Target on the way to a Disney trip. And so we bought them, and first pack, she rips an Enchanted Aladdin. And I was kind of like, okay, this is clearly going to be our game. If you're already ripping Enchanted, it's on the first day.
That's awesome. I remember I was stuck at work the release day, and the next morning, because I work 24-hour shifts, I got off and I found a trove at a Barnes & Noble, a couple loose packs of starter decks, and we actually pulled Enchanted Elsa that morning. No idea which one it came out of because we put all the packs together.
Sure.
But we were hooked.
I can see that. Yeah, we had to buy our Elsa, unfortunately.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Well, you just earned an Elsa that a lot of people don't have.
That is true. Yeah, we're kind of a completist. We've got one of every, Elsa Enchanted card, all the songs, all the supporting characters. I don't know. This next set though has so many Enchanted Annas and Elsas and songs. That collection may take a while for us to put back together.
My wallet is going to be hurting from this Enchanted next set. I know Jay-Z shouted me out on the Lorecast today when they showed off the Let's Get Dangerous Enchanted.
And the Darkwing Duck card. So excited.
Eric, how you doing today?
Just got back from locals, played some Kiwi, went 2-1. Woo.
2-1?
Yeah, it wasn't a great time. Kiwi is not my cup of tea. But
I can see it. You're more like a Dumbino, Blue Steel Control kind of guy.
If I ain't playing ramp, it's weird.
Eric always likes to have that additional ink.
That's right.
Of course.
That's where the name of the channel came from.
Of course, yeah. Every time I talk to Eric, he's always like, man, I was wanting short, or I missed ramp, or there's always a reason. And I'm like, you always just need that one additional ink. That's all you need.
That's what happens.
It.
Yeah.
So, so you got top 32 in Richmond, and you were playing dogs.
I was.
I believe the day one percentage rate was 8% of the field.
Yeah, 8 or 9%.
So not very big compared to some of the other colors. I'm going to bring your deck list up on screen, and let's just walk us through your run at Richmond, your time at Richmond, while I bring this up.
Sure. All right. So decided to bring dogs to Richmond. I started testing dogs pretty aggressively starting in set 7. Went through a ton of iterations. This is the list that I ended up taking to Richmond. It's a pretty standard list, similar to probably some of the other lists that, were around. I know some of the other top 32 players were starting to cut the Chromacon, adding in some of the Rhino and Under the Sea Heavy. I kind of thought leading into the tournament that if I didn't bring dogs, I was probably going to bring either blue-green or Blurple. And I thought blue-green would be a pretty high number in the room. And blue-green felt pretty free. To be quite honest, playing this more kind of aggressive build, the higher end Under the Sea builds are just a little too slow and kind of gave green-blue an opportunity to catch up into the game. So I ended up taking this list here. There were a couple spots that I kept bouncing around. Aja kept going from 2 to 3. It's kind of like an extra pseudo Chromacon. There are a lot of games you go turn 1, 1 drop, turn 2, 1 drop, 1 drop, turn 3, you drop a Raja and Bodyguard, and you start turning sideways. And that was working out great, especially as some players starting to tech in for the item hate to remove the Chromacon. So I at one point had Raja up to 3 or 4 copies and then kind of settled it back down to 2. I just was seeing it too often. The Clarabelle was another one that kind of came in and out. At one point, I was playing 4 of the Shift Webby. I was kind of expecting dogs to be a little higher percentage than what we saw. And I had played at the PPG tournament in Orlando that they have. And I played against a green steel player that played for, obviously, the Shift Webby. And I realized how good Webby was into the mirrors and into Chromacon with that ward and the 2/4 body. It just sticks around. It's really hard to remove. And so I had it up to 3 or 4 at one point, and because I was expecting more dogs, I ended up cutting down on that and put the Under the Seas back in. Under the Sea was horrible for me the whole tournament run. Unfortunately, I played no mirror matches the entire 12 rounds leading up into Top Cut. I think I resolved Under the Sea one time the entire tournament. It did win me that game. It was against Blurple. He had like 2 genies and 2 Elsas on board, and I happened to tramp and find it, and it kind of sealed that game, but I was already pretty high and lower on that game, so I probably had that game sealed anyway. Lullaby was another one that I kind of went in and out of, cut it down. I switched it for Improvise. What I really found, though, is it was so great against Calhoun in the Purple Steel matchup. Being able to just reduce that Calhoun down to a 1/2, you get an extra couple, 2 or 3 lore that sometimes ends up being the difference. And, one of the things I really liked about dogs going all the way back to set 7 was Tramp. Obviously Street Smart Dog is just such an incredible card. It's definitely one of the high rolliest cards in all of Lorcana, being able to search for the card you need, being able to cheat it out so early. And in addition to that, the 2-drop Tramp being a 2-drop singer that you can play as a 1-drop, being able to sing the lullaby with the Tramp and turn aggressively was really valuable. Or even on the turns where turn 2, you play an Ursula. Turn 3, you develop your board further and then use the Ursula to sing the lullaby because it's a character you don't care about as much. Or the Mowgli was really powerful. So that, I really wouldn't have made any changes. Maybe take out the Under the Sea if I knew what my matchups would have been. My tournament run, to give you a little bit of idea on that. Day 1, I played Red Purple round 1. So I kind of started off with that's probably the roughest matchup. I lost the die roll, but I actually found in testing I was about 80% win rate on the draw. Which was one of the reasons I took this deck list with me. Is Dogs has so many different options and play lines that if you've really mastered the deck, that extra card just makes the difference. Instead of an additional link, that extra card is what gets you there. So I played Red Purple round 1, 2-0'd it. I just was able to drop a Mowgli on 2, and he happened to be playing a build that had a couple of the uninkable songs, and so managed to snipe those and develop a Chromacon early and win that one. Round 2, I played a Blue Steel, really close. He won the die roll, and I ended up just squeaking out 2-1 on that one. So I was 2-0 going into round 3. I played against Blurple, one of the Forbidden Mountain guys. Going into game 3, I kept in my opening hand Daisy, Chromacon, and Moldaway 4, and drew Shift Lady, Shift Lady, Shift Lady, Under the Sea. And so that game was pretty much over. So that was my first loss. So I went into round 4 at 2-1. I played against another Blue Steel. It was a Blue Steel Detective build, which... Ooh. Yeah, so it was really interesting. There's certain cards that I just didn't remember existed, like the Donald Duck, the 4-cost Inkable. When he enters play, give a detective character Challenger +2. So I made a misplay in the first game, not realizing really what I was playing against. He had a Basil on 1, he ramped on 2, and I quested my Daisy, thinking it was a free Daisy quest. And he Donald Ducked me, and game was kind of over from there. And then the other game he won, he Judy Hops into a Judy Hops into a Judy Hops. And, just that 3/3 body was, too aggressive for me to deal with. So I started out 2-2. So I knew I had to win out day 1. I did. I played another Red Purple round 5. I won that one 2-1. I played a Green Purple aggro. And then I played a purple steel, and I 2-0'd those. And then last round I played green blue. It was my first green blue, and I was so happy to see it as soon as he started. And I quickly, aggressively just quested and got to 20. I think I was done with that round in about 10 minutes. So everybody else was still finishing round 1, and we were already up, and I was locked for day 2. So then day 2, I played a blurple round 9. I quickly won that one 2-0. I played another blue steel round 10, managed to beat that one 2-1. It was a really close match. He found Pluto all 3 games. So I found I had to hold the Chromacon and just kind of wait until he exhausted all his resources, and then developed the Chromacon and was able to squeak that one out. Played a red purple that I 2-0'd in round 11. Again, just kind of being able to get out of Chromacon as soon as you can and turn sideways. And then round 12, I played another blue steel. Won game 1. Game 2, I should have had him beat, and I misplayed. I took a tramp line, and I had an option to take a go-go or a daisy. And he had like 4 or 5 bodies on board, all with damage. So I greedily took the go-go instead of taking the daisy that I could have dropped as an extra body. He top decked to Hades, was able to remove my tramp and one other character, kill everything, and so I ended up losing by 1 lore. And then game 3, I just opened up the perfect curve. It was like lady, Ebby, tramp, daisy, and an inkable. And I think he played a Cinderella and a sail was all he managed to play that game before I lost to 20. So then I top 32.
Brethren.
Yeah, yeah. So I ended up playing 4 blue steel over the course of the weekend, which I was not expecting. And then I got on top cut. I played against Dave Solberg. He was, I think, 3rd or 4th after Swiss. He was playing Amber Amethyst. Game 1, I mulled pretty aggressively and ended up with a Chromacon that he sniped with the Mowgli on turn 2. I was able to get up to 17 lore, and he just happened to hit the Demona at the right time and exert my board and kind of clear it and squeak away with game 1. Game 2, I knew he was probably looking for that Mowgli again, especially when Dogs is on the play. One of the things you have to be mindful of is every card is so valuable. So I was trying to make sure I didn't draw in any Lullabies or Under the Seas or Chromacons. So I only mulled away 3, and I drew Shift Lady, and then Chromacon was my 7th card. And he played Mowgli on turn 2, and you could just hear it was the off-camera feature match. And you heard the whole crowd gasp when they saw that I had the Chromacon that I discarded. And it was pretty much over from there. Worst part was afterwards, he said that he was like 1-14 in testing against Dogs leading into the weekend. And he ended up being 4-0 against Dogs in his run to top 16.
Yeah, I mean, amazing run.
Thank you.
That was an incredible run, man. And, it goes to show tournament variance is a very real thing. He went, 1-14 and then 4-0 versus Dogs. So tournament variance can just get the best of us on any given day.
Yes, it can. It was really interesting. I'm obviously very glad I took Dogs. I'm excited for Continentals. Who knows what the medal will look like by the time we get there. A lot certainly changing as we move forward. Like I said, I had so much testing in with Dogs. I actually, the week leading up to it, because of the holiday, I was really questioning my pick. And I really started to, wonder if I was making the wrong choice, and just decided go in, let's have fun. I'd had the reps on this. I'd been top 10 on at least a couple times testing different lists. So felt pretty confident going in, and certainly paid off.
It's funny because, Forrest, I remember you texting me right before Richmond, and you're like, dude, how many blue steel players are playing Spooky Sight? How many Spooky Sights are there? Like, I'm nervous for that matchup. And then you came across 4 and beat most of them. Like, that's pretty impressive, even though you were like worried about that one specific card.
But, there was so much talk, especially in the Twitter space, about Dogs leading up to Richmond. It was all you heard was Dogs, and green-blue. And, I just felt that there was going to be a rise in blue steel. And, I felt very good into blue steel, except apparently blue steel detectives. Absent if they happen to squeeze in a Spooky Sight. Unfortunately with Mowgli, the only way to snipe it is if, your opponent doesn't keep 2 actions or non-characters in their hand. And so, a lot of my testing when I came against blue steel, they'd have Spooky Sight. and they'd keep something else, an extra sail in their hand, just to make sure that I couldn't snipe it, and that was one of the harder matchups for me.
Yeah, us Blue Steelers, we'll sneak some cards in here and there and catch you off guard.
Yes, you will.
I faced dogs only one time that weekend. It was in the Friday event. And I was able to find my Pluto right at the right time. I had a Tink on board, a Tink in hand, and I had 9 ink. And so I was able to play Pluto, shift Tink, destroy the Chromacon, and wipe the board with the Tink.
It's all over. Yeah. The Pluto was probably the best of the item removal that I saw, both testing for and against dogs. Just being able to develop that Pluto, and a lot of times even just a Pluto with a Captain Hook or something to pop the Chromacon. The only way to really play around it is either to not play the Chromacon line, and sometimes that was the way you had to go. I guess I should have mentioned in my run throughout the weekend, including top 32 match, I only resolved Tramp 7 total times. And of those 7 times, 3 of them were in one game against a Blue Steel player where I just kind of, high rolled with the Tramp. And so that felt pretty good. But yes, it was basically a lady not Tramp deck that I played over the course of the weekend. But holding that Chromacon back as long as you can, sometimes it forces them into a position where they have to ink the Pluto to play the Hades or to play the Tinkerbell or something else, the Vincenzo's they're trying to develop. And that's normally when then you can drop the Chromacon and turn everybody sideways.
I think it's definitely Blue Steel versus Dogs. It's just kind of a who draws better, right? Because
100%.
Habibi definitely spanked me on that charity tournament on stream on Wonder's channel. It was really bad. And I misplayed like crazy. Looked like a fool. But yeah, I mean, I saw a deck. It did you well, man. You got the Continentals invite. You got the Elsa promo. Is there anything looking back that you would change?
Honestly, I don't think so. Maybe I would have taken out the Under the Seas if I had known that Dogs was going to be represented as low as it was. Probably would have taken the Under the Seas out. Like I said, it lost me a couple games, or it was a bad top deck. I had cut it from the list previously. And just so much talk about Dogs coming into the tournament when I thought it was necessary. I don't know if you've had much experience with Dogs, but the mirror match is basically who high rolls better and who can get to the Under the Sea. And if you're not playing Under the Sea, you're 100% of the time going to lose that battle. And so I decided it was necessary for the tournament. But had I not played that, I probably would have taken those out. Because I was worried about the dog matchup until I kind of saw what's going on Friday. I was going to play the 3-drop Lady instead of Clarabelle, because you can on turn 3 then play Lady and develop another 2-drop, and then you can on the turn you play Tramp, you're able to sing the Under the Sea in the mirror match. But once I had heard that there was less dogs there, I thought it was necessary to switch it back to the Clarabelle, just to give you that little extra card draw when you're on the play.
Okay. I know pre-show we talked a little bit about like you went to Fort Worth. And did you go to any other DLCs, and how do you feel like your past DLC experiences help prepare you for Richmond?
Sure. So I've been to 4 DLCs. I've been able to get a ticket for a couple more, but unfortunately with my job, I just wasn't able to get the time off in order to go to some of them. So I went to Fort Worth. I placed 87th with 44 points with Red Purple. It was a build I played with Genie 3 Wishes to combat the Bucky Diablo lines, and that worked really well. I just kind of bubbled out in the last round and didn't get that 2-0 that I needed to secure top cut. And so I did get my Let It Go promo, so that was great. And that kind of gave me the confidence I needed that, okay, when I put in the time, that I can succeed in this game. I found I played quite a few mirror matches in that tournament. One of the things I noticed is, some of my opponents were inking the incorrect cards for the matchup, not holding on to the Mauis or the Foxes. As soon as I saw that go into the inkwell, you drop a castle and the game's nearly over. Same thing. I would bait a lot of my opponents into when I'd get up to 8 ink. I'd bait them and I'd drop my hand with a bunch of characters, and I'd just leave 2 castles in hand. They'd beat prep me. I'd drop double castle, and you just see the look of defeat on their face. And so just learning those key lines and play patterns, told me that okay, there is something here. I played in Toronto then. That was kind of that one tournament format post Bucky.
Weird meta, yeah,
super weird.
Yeah, and so I decided to play red purple in that tournament as well. Ended up being a bad call. I played 3 of the Emerald Amber discard decks in a row, rounds 2, 3, and 4, and they all took me. It was such a terrible matchup. They just were able to dump my hand very quickly, and then I just couldn't recover, get to the ink I needed. And so, I just played to get my Rapunzel promo and called it a day there. That just kind of told me that, variance can happen. And sometimes you can't control what you can control. Everybody has good days and bad days. I felt really confident in my list. It just wasn't my tournament. And then I did go to Milwaukee as well. I took dogs to Milwaukee. Did okay. I got my Mulan promo. I think I started out 2-0 again, and then I just lost a couple straight back to back. Secured my Mulan promo and went on to side events. And again, it was one of those I was waffling a little bit leading up to the tournament about some last minute decisions. I was initially not going to play a ChromaCon build, and the night before the tournament, kind of got talked into playing ChromaCon and Under the Sea, and it caused me to brick a couple games because I wasn't just used to playing both. I was playing one or the other. And so that cost me a couple games. And so that tournament kind of taught me, stick with your gut, stick with what you know. I don't believe in kind of those last minute decisions. If you haven't tested it, it's probably not worth taking to a big tournament like that, especially when there's, continentals invites and prizes on the line. And so, that's why ultimately leading up to the tournament, even when I wanted to switch to green, blue or blurple, I stuck to my guns and stuck with dogs, and obviously it paid off.
Much better than me deciding to play Godmother at like 11:30 at night on Discord with people chatting, figuring out numbers. Ocean sitting right next to me going, I don't know what you're doing.
I mean, I did the same thing.
As I say, I think Ocean switched to an ally build at the last minute.
I was on my 2-4-6 build and I was pretty confident. I think overall through my testing, I had about a 75% win rate. And then I switched to allies the next day and did not do hot.
I think allies was still a good call, but you mentioned variance, and everybody can have good days and bad days, right? So I played Fairy Godmother, Mad Lad Gaming. Shout out to Sebi. We had kind of played with it like a month prior, and then it just felt on Friday that I needed some sort of like high rolling edge. And, I sat down round 1 versus green blue, and I 2-0'd it in 15 minutes. And I was like, whoa. I mean, Ocean, you remember I was stoked. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And my run started off really strong. I faced 3 green blues in a row. I won the first one 2-0. I lost the other one 1-2. And then I beat the third one. And then from there, I ran into like red purple playing Mushu's Rocket and Hercules and Next Stop Olympus. And then I ran into a purple steel, which was play draw dependent, and lost there. And so started off really strong. And then, but variance can happen. And I think it's really easy as TCG players to beat ourselves up when variance doesn't go our way. And I think it's very important to remember that it's the thing, right? You have variance in who your opponents are, what cards they're playing, what cards you draw, what cards they draw, die rolls. There's all these things. And yes, there is skill, but I like to look at those things and go, okay, well, where did I go wrong here? Is there something I can change, something I went wrong on? So for example, when I put the Jasmine build together, I took out Jasmine 5, and that would have solidified the purple steel matchup. And she overperformed the day before, but instead I wanted to run an extra Goliath and an extra Scuttle. So sometimes we just make those bad calls, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say the gentleman on red purple, he played Mushu's Hercules and then Mushu's Rocket and then challenged and then next stopped Olympus and challenged again and like basically did that 2 games in a row. And he's like, oh, I'd never get this combo off. And I was like, well, today's your day. Today's the day to do it, man.
That's when you're like, man, I wish I would have shuffled his deck better.
Yeah. Wish I would have cut better.
My fiance played Purple Steel, both at Milwaukee and then at Richmond. And, sometimes just showing that sometimes it's not your day. She started off with an early couple losses and, was still trying to feel optimistic. She knew she was missing out on day 2, but was going to get her Milan promo. And she ran into it was a blue steel deck that was playing Treasure. The Treasure Mountain card?
No.
The 5-drop uninkable. And
I thought Sammy didn't come to the tournament.
That's funny.
Yeah, so he played the Jafar 6-drop, so 4 cost characters and less can't challenge, and then he developed the Treasure Mountain, and then next turn played another one. So he was gaining like 4 to 6 lore a turn off these mountains that she couldn't challenge with any of her Purple Steel characters. And, so sometimes you just get into a wrong bracket and you play into things that you aren't, necessarily prepared for. And, it's just not your day, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, and as long as we can learn from it. And yeah, I would say this, on Friday, I got burned by a red steel deck. And we've seen red steel builds, right? They burned me for 11 lore in a turn. So they had 4 Sword of Hercules and a Calhoun and a Hook. And I was like, okay, I can turn sideways, gain a little bit of lore here. They dropped Mushu and Falzo and then challenged the Hook and then the Calhoun. And it was like, GG's. Cool. You got your combo off. You're happy. I'm happy for you. Friday wasn't as high of a stakes anyway, but it is cool when you can get those things off and you can see those players get those things off. And sometimes this is what catches you, because when you're prepping, you're like, okay, what's the meta going to be? Like you said, there was all the online chatter about dogs and this and that. I mean, and we were driving to Richmond listening to like Jeremy Bertoni's Spaces, and like they're dogs. And we're in the car and I'm like, I don't know if dogs are going to be that big of a deal or if it's just kind of the boogeyman, and you just got to make those meta calls.
Yeah, you do. Dogs is one of those decks that it's very fragile. I like to describe it as a house of cards. You play one thing out of sequence, one thing goes wrong, the whole thing comes crumbling down. I had some people ask me before the tournament, should I run dogs, at Richmond? And I said, unless you have a couple hundred reps at least on the deck and know it inside and out, do not take it, because if you don't have patience, if you quest on the wrong turn, if you sequence things out of order, you will lose, because it's a 1 lore difference. The whole house of cards will come crumbling down.
Oh yeah. And that's why I felt comfortable moving to Allies, because I played Allies all last set, basically. We were duck gaming. We were playing the nephews. I like to play a little weird off meta spice, make my opponents go, what? I will tell you that Fairy Godmother got read no less than 15 times on Saturday in Richmond.
I believe that. Did you have any bad high rolls off of the Fairy Godmother?
Not so much in Richmond. I did play a set champs this past weekend, and I Fairy Godmothered a Clarabelle into a Prince Philip, and I had no way to challenge it or anything. And then they you're welcome, my godmother, and I was like, cool, it happens. But we're high rolling, we're gambling, we're gaming. That's how it goes. So we talked about Richmond. Actually, Oceans, you've been really quiet, man.
Also, just listening to Forrest talk about his deck, his successes.
I know you guys are local and you probably talk to Forrest a lot, but you got any questions for like the audience might want to hear?
What I like to know about Forrest. No, the real question is like going into Richmond, how are you prepping? Like what types of lines were you looking for?
Great
what
question.
really got you in the mentality for it?
That's a good question. So, going into Richmond, how I did a lot of my testing, obviously I've been playing dogs in set 7. So I had tested probably, and this is not an exaggeration, almost every iteration, every card in this color combination. Eric, I know you remember I was even trying to make Circle of Life dogs work.
Oh my God.
Really hard.
I rolled me so bad. I kid you not. We played 2 games, and this was like a tournament where the stakes were pretty high. And he was my winning in. I was his winning in to like top cut. And basically, game 1, I think he won the Dyro too. Game 1, it was like a turn 4, tramp, sing Circle of Life, hitting a Clarabelle. And I was like, cool, I'm playing like Tink on this turn. And then game 2, it was He saw all 4 tramps by his 4th turn. And I was like, dude, what will you do against this? Like, this is the most broken thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out, there's a lot of purple steel back, especially at the start of the set. Obviously even at Richmond, there was quite a bit of purple steel, but I was testing a lot of the 1-drop uninkable Pluto. I was trying the Huey, the 2-drop uninkable that, kind of acts as an extra ramp card. And I really liked the Mickey Amber Champion. Giving that extra willpower and everything. I was testing lines where you go turn 1 Pluto, turn 2 Raja, turn 3 the Mickey Champion, and now suddenly your Raja's a 3/6 that you developed already and is questing along with this Pluto that you've got ready, and then you drop Tramp and kind of explode from there. And so I was testing a lot of those versions as well. I even was testing some off the wall stuff like
the Chip.
The Chip was another one, Chip Shift Line. So the 4-drop, I forget if it's Chip or Dale, that when you play it, you can 3 cards to make something -3. So I think in one of those games, I played it against Oceans and made his Tinkerbell a 1/5. So you couldn't do anything. And then you'd shift the Chip and Dale on the next turn, and then you could recycle your tramps. I tried card draw. One of the things I found with dogs, especially on the on the play, is, again, that you really needed about 1 more card to really be able to combo off and do what you need to do. So I had tested that there's a 2/4, it's a dual color card. I can't think of what the name is, but it's a 2/4 3-drop inkable dual color. It's a dog. And if you have, I think it's 2 or 3 other characters.
Peg.
That's it. Yep. You can tap it to draw a card. And so on the, I would go 1-drop, 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 Peg. And then on the Tramp turn, you can draw 1 extra card, hopefully find maybe another 1-drop, and then you can go Tramp. And so I tested that. I tested Invited to the Ball as another form of card draw, because turn 3, you could go Invited to the Ball. If you weren't playing a lot of actions or items, you could normally draw 2. And then you drop a 1-drop on that turn, so you still have the 4 characters you need for the Tramp play on the following turn. So, I had tested quite literally about every card that these colors could provide. And I did a lot of testing, on got a lot of statistics about, what my matchups were, trying to keep an eye. And, I think a mistake a lot of people make when they test is they look at what the result is, whether I won or lost. And that's how they determine whether or not they're a good player or their deck is the right deck to bring to the tournament. And, it could be something as easy as you lost because of a top deck go for game. And, they only had a 7% chance of topping that card. And otherwise you had dominated the entire game. And, if you say, hey, I put that in the win column or the loss column, depending on which side of the game you're on, you need to look deeper at that. A loss may have actually been truly a win, and it was just a loss to the variance like we talked about earlier. And so, I was really focused on, trying to control what I could control. And, again, one of the reasons I chose dogs is I was over 80% on the draw. And so anytime I lost a die roll, I didn't feel like, well, I lost the die roll. This match wasn't meant to be. I still had an opportunity to get back into the game. And that's what I liked about dogs. And answering your question, Oceans, is, dogs allows you with so many 1-drops to go 1-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop. And in doing so, a lot of times, most decks curve out with a 1-drop, a 2-drop, or they're going a 1-drop into a ramp. And so they're only developing 1 or 2 bodies onto the board so early. So when you can develop 3 characters, all of a sudden you've taken the tempo back. And then from there, if, on that following turn, maybe you Mowgli or Ursula, you get that knowledge of what's in their hand. You also maybe get to snipe a card, and now not only are you up a card in card advantage and you're up on tempo, but you've also hit another card out of their hand, and all of a sudden they're kind of on the defensive, right? The blue steel players, if you can snipe one of the cards out of their hand, they're missing that 1 extra ink they need, or they have to ink the Vincenzo, or they ink the Tinkerbell just to get up to the curve that they need, and that's enough just to squeak out games.
I've got some secret tech for you if you want to make some blue players mad. All right, you ready? It's Amber Steel. You turn 1 Pluto, turn 2 Pete, turn 3 Mowgli, and then have Pete sing the new song, Keep the Ancient Ways.
Go.
So they can't play their turn 2 ramp. Then you take it the next turn and they still can't play anything. Don't. That's not good. Don't do that. But
Unless they play Tipo, and then you're like, cool.
Yeah.
Nobody's playing T-Pos.
Yeah, those don't win games.
T-Pos don't win DLCs.
No, but they make you a lot of money on eBay, I guess.
Hey, shout out to Fungus and more power to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, congrats to him. That was a hell of a run.
That finals match was like those guys have been playing all day long, and you could tell they were exhausted.
Yeah.
And it was a grind. It was 100% a grind.
Very good.
Definitely.
So I think we talked about Richmond enough. So we are in the middle of reveal season, and we got Winter Spell going on. So we reached out to you. We got a couple cards you were excited about, want to talk about, and then later on in the video, guys, we have a early look at what Forrest is kind of planning with some set 11 cards to update this deck. So you kind of get a sneak peek. So, nope, I'm not on the tag. Clicked on the right screen. So we're at Winter Spell, and first thing is we're going to talk about Darkwing Duck. If you know me, I'm a huge fan. I'm such a big fan that JDZ told me today that he doesn't think of Darkwing Duck without thinking about me.
And that's saying something.
Yeah. So I'm obviously excited about this card. I like to play items. I'm going to go ahead and kudos myself because when Darkwing Duck got announced, everyone's like, oh, he's going to be Amethyst. And I was like, there's no way. He doesn't fit their identity. He's not mystical. He is blue and steel, sapphire and steel. And they're like, no, you're crazy. It's Amethyst. I was like, just because he wears purple, he's not going to be there. I love that he's in the colors I love to play. I love that he's got item synergy, which I like to play. Tell me why you're excited about this card.
So something you should probably know about me, and Oceans knows this well. I can't stand ramp decks. I feel like, you always talk to players who are playing Blurple, Blue Steel, and green blue. All they ever talk about is, I missed my ramp, and I lost that match because I missed my ramp. And I just can't stand to play decks where you lose games because of the variance that if you don't hit the reliable card on 2, you lose that game. So normally blue steel is not my color palette, but this Darkwing Duck really intrigues me for a couple reasons. Number one, obviously the item synergy, the ability to kind of fire the cannons for one that you can use, and
best
trigger.
card ever.
Yeah, repeatedly, he's really, really strong. The first thing I noticed about him when he was revealed, the two things I pointed out right away was he was a 7-cost inkable, and so the first thing that popped in my head was Beyond the Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And number 2 is the detective keyword. Especially after getting pummeled by Detective Blue Steel at Richmond, Blue Steel Detective had been on my mind. And when Darkwing was revealed as the shift, and you look at his stat line, a 6/8 quest for 2 can also challenge ready villain characters. And putting aside the item that was just revealed this week, there are a lot of very relevant villains that just are naturally played. So I think that ability is more relevant than what some people are giving it credit for. And that 6/8 body is so strong that being able to shift that as early as turn 4, depending on where you want to ramp, and we can talk about that here in a minute. But being able to ramp into this, play this as early as turn 4, and then sing a Beyond the Horizon. Early on, I was a big Amber Steel lover, and I played all different versions of Amber Steel song. And, I really liked Lantern as a card, just to open up some unique play lines. And I think there's a lot of really unique detectives that allow for some ramp synergy where you're not having to rely on Tipo and Sail all the time to be your ramp engine. And being able to ramp into Darkwing Duck and then sing Beyond the Horizon to disrupt those Prince Philip shift lines or, whatever other combos that we may be seeing as we move into the Winter Spell meta is really intriguing. Looking at some of the other Darkwing Duck cards that were revealed, you've got the 1-drop 2/2 that's a shift target for him that's inkable. So you can go turn 1, that shift target. Turn 2, you can ramp. Turn 3, then you're at 4 ink. You can play something like a Judy Hopps, which then can search for your Darkwing Duck. And then turn 4, you can shift the Darkwing Duck, sing Beyond the Horizon, empty both players' hands. Maybe there's some unique things you could do with that. Then you've got that Judy Hopps that can be a singer 4 or can search for another detective. But the other line that I think is really intriguing and something I'm interested in trying is, you play some sort of one drop, whether it be an item. There's the Robot Queen that obviously is very synergistic with Darkwing Duck. Being able to play a character and basically pay 2 to deal 4 damage is very strong, and an inkable item card comboed with Darkwing Duck. So you can play that item on one, or maybe you play the Nick Wilde that's a detective that's a shift target as well.
Mm-hmm.
Turn 2, you can play the new Darkwing Duck, the 4/1 Sapphire that's got wards. So again, another very strong shift target that also is a threat. Turn 3, you could play Detective Mickey, which again is a detective that's searchable. You also have the Darkwing Duck. I'm blanking on the name. The chair that ramps and again synergizes with that Darkwing Duck that you're going to be shifting out the following turn. You also have the Judy Hopps, the 4/3 that if you have a detective in play, you can ramp an item. And so you could ramp your own item to help you ramp aggressively to that 5 on an inkable Judy Hopps body, or deal with something like Chromacon or an opposing item that you want to remove. And then shift that Darkwing Duck again and kind of proceed from there.
Yeah. There's a lot of very cool synergies in the detectives and the items. And even today yesterday, we got a reveal of basically a new Baboom that does an extra damage if you have Darkwing Duck in play.
Yeah.
In some early testing, I've had a lot of fun having Darkwing Duck down and then having two Robot Queens and then playing Tamatoa 6, paying 4 to basically deal 2 damage, stack twice, and then immediately get those Robot Queens back because of the way you can order the triggers. And also, this Enchanted is amazing. Ravensburger hates my wallet. So I got a question for you. I was going to ask earlier. Are you an Enchanted foil gamer? Are you playing Enchanteds and foils? Or are you playing min rarity?
I will let Oceans answer this question.
I believe it is min rarity.
Okay.
So I'm kind of selective. I will play with certain Enchanteds. Typically what I find is about every color pairing that I play, there's one Enchanted card that I enjoy. When I played Red Purple, that card was Maui Hero to All. So I played with an Enchanted playset of those. And then I play, some foils, some non-foils, just kind of depending on what they are and whether I like the look of them as a cold foil or not back in that time period. For the Dogs deck, I loved the Enchanted Tramp. Did not like the Enchanted Lady as much. Just wasn't my style. And so I played with the Enchanted Tramps, and then basically the rest of the deck was foiled. But, Dogs has kind of been my pet deck, no pun intended. So, I've enjoyed that. So I'm curious to see what my next probably 4 of Enchanted will be that I want to play with.
I've got a set of Enchanted Tinkerbells that I've played in every DLC. So we might change that up for the next one if we're playing. I don't know if we're playing Blue Steel or not yet. There's a lot of interesting stuff.
I got a singular Enchanted Arthur I play. When he comes in, he's a game changer. And you're like, wow, that card's beautiful.
Yeah, Enchanted Arthur. I was playing Enchanted Jasmines and Scars last set. And then I've got the Hades, the 4 of Hades. I like my shiny card for 2.
Of course, who doesn't?
But there's been some online discussion of people moving away from it because of fear of marked cards. So I've just kind of gotten into asking that question.
Yeah, so I can tell you I was deck checked twice when I was at Richmond and didn't have any problems with my cards or my Enchanteds. So I think it's, there are certain ones that I probably wouldn't play, especially if they're very creased or curled, if they're obvious and noticeable. I wouldn't play with those. But, if you do your diligence and take care of the cards normally, I don't think it's an issue.
Do you double sleeve or single sleeve, just for the folks out there?
So if I was doing Dragon Shields, I would double sleeve. I've had some issues with Dragon Shields, but when I use Katanas, I find it's a tight enough fit, especially when I'm playing, like my Dogs deck was mostly all foils. There weren't any issues, so I just single sleeve those.
Okay. I double sleeve. I know that this foil in particular is one that's a major offender that a lot of people...
Yes, that would be a card I would not play with.
The Tinkerbell seems okay though, but I have my Enchanted, so just check your cards. Double sleeving does help. I hate that there are people becoming that used to play, with their Enchanteds and their foils, and now they're afraid to. Enjoy your cards, like that's what they're there for.
Yeah, and when in doubt, check with the judge before the tournament and just ask, hey, do these look okay? Are there any concerns? When in doubt, I always check with judges on all sorts of things like that, just to make sure you're not going to run into a problem down the road.
Yeah, and like Ocean's hit me up before Richmond and was like, hey, can you bring one regular Arthur? And so I can put it in my deck box just in case.
Yep.
So like he carried in a spare deck box just in case he got called on it, so he had one to swap it out. So that's always an option too.
Always prepared.
We'll move on. The next card that was on your list was Ohana Means Family. I personally think this card is kind of insane.
Pretty good.
It's Rapunzel, but you don't have a body. I'm going to let you talk more about the card and why you're excited about it.
Sure.
But I like the way they're retooling some of these older effects that people may have been missing from the meta.
My first thought when I saw some of these cards, the Ohana Means Family, and then there's the Copper, that's the 6-drop inkable, 8/5 Reckless Rush.
The new Maui.
It almost feels like, I don't know if maybe this is DeCandio starting to show his head in developer, but these are cards I think should have been in Fabled.
Yes.
Kind of retrains of the cards that were so impactful back in the early meta days that were just a little overstated or a little too powerful. You retrain them and you put them back into rotation. The Ohana Means Family was really interesting to me for a couple reasons. When I look at a card, one of the cards I loved in Red Purple was Friends on the Other Side. Of course, it was singable, which is not something that this card has. But in comparison, we found that Woodchuck's Guidebook is just pay 3 ink, draw 2 cards is good enough in a lot of instances. So with Ohana Means Family being a 3-cost, heal all damage, draw a card. If on average you can draw 2 cards, it's just a Woodchuck's Guidebook in amber color, which can be very powerful. Again, I've been trying to make Circle of Life work. It's another card. I have a play set of the Enchanted Circle of Life.
Beautiful.
Huge. Toy Story and Lion King are 2 of my favorite movies. So I'd love to make the Circle of Life deck work. And cards like Ohana Means Family helps because it allows you to continue to ink. Like a Dog's deck runs out of steam so quickly. Having another inkable, important draw card that also can synergize in other ways. Certainly Rapunzel having the 1/5 body that quested for 2, especially in the Chernadog type decks was very powerful. But there are ways that you can use this card to your advantage. On turn 4, for example, if you would Rapunzel trap someone instead of playing Rapunzel, as strong as that was, you can still do the Rapunzel trap, but play Ohana Means Family, heal the damage off of the character, draw hopefully 3 cards or maybe more, depending on what you might be playing. First thing I thought of when I saw this was the 7-cost Tramp. If you can play 7-cost Tramp on turn 4, search for this card the following turn. If you've quested everybody else sideways, your opponent's certainly going to have to respond to your board. And your Tramp can swing into, a 3, 4, 5 strength character, and all of a sudden you're drawing 5 cards as a dog player.
Pretty good.
And being able to drop, 2, 3, 4 more 1-drops on the following turn, along with having a Tramp still developed on board, seems very strong. I really like that it starts to seem like more colors are starting to get draw. Something we didn't talk about beforehand, but I thought was interesting on the main stage they did. I think it was yesterday. They showed the ink identities, and something I didn't see in Amethyst was card draw being one of Amethyst's key characteristics. And I'm hoping what that means is more colors are going to get more draw cards rather than it all be forced into Amethyst to really balance out the colors. But Ohana Means Family, could end up being a card like Rapunzel that when you're playing another, strong player that knows what they're doing, they may not fall into those Rapunzel traps. But I think there's going to be some design space with this card that you can set up forced Rapunzel traps like the Tramp line that I described that could really make this card impactful.
And even like with Amber Steel having the access to early singers again, they could just hit their own character and then heal, draw a bunch of cards as they used to do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We had transitioned to Troubadour being the preferred singer 4 in the 2-drop spot. And I think we'll be going back to Ursula Vanessa now.
For sure.
Because that 1/4 body is very important. If you can draw 3 off this card, it definitely goes a long way.
I can also see Lawrence is coming back.
Yeah, that would be another good one.
Pluto Bodyguard.
Pluto Bodyguard, another good one.
They did say in the main stage, like they're constantly reevaluating like the color pie and the color identities, because we've seen a lot of shift of things into like green or to emerald and amber this set. And so that is nice because card draw is one of those like universal things that like everybody's got to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have card draw, you're just going to lose the game. But it is interesting to see that they are like constantly reevaluating how they're doing things. Because like they added the alert keyword, right? And they slid those into Sapphire and Steel because they were already giving us that ability on cards. It just wasn't a keyword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they've done a good job, kind of transitioning a little bit from the early sets and the ink identities. And, I hope that continues.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm excited to see some of these effects that we miss as players coming back in just a slightly different form. There's like a higher ceiling to this card now, right? Because it's not limited like Rapunzel was, but then it doesn't leave the body behind. So there's kind of like give and take here. I may be able potentially to draw a lot more cards in something like Amber Ruby playing that like ridiculous mini bodyguard that's like a 1/8, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, another one, fits the theme, Surfer Stitch. If you could circle a life Surfer Stitch on turn 4, and then the next turn, your opponent, if they turn anything sideways, your Surfer Stitch punches into that thing. You're drawing another, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards, maybe, depending on what's on the board.
Yeah.
Could be, insane high roll.
Also, great enchanted as well.
Yes.
I think that if we don't have this big shift of everyone getting away from playing enchantments just by fear of like being called at a tournament, I think so far the enchantments we've seen are a lot of what seem to be playable cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got next, we'll move on. Oh, I've clicked, it's not going. Wisdom of the Willow. Again, more card draw. And this is all questing. So this is exactly what your deck wants to do. They want a quest, and then you're just going to draw a card.
I don't know where exactly this will slot in. This is kind of one of those intriguing cards that I think could certainly find a home. Again, and dogs as an example. If you're able to drop, 5 characters on your first 3 turns, you go into your 4th turn, you ink a card, you play Wisdom of the Willow, you turn all 5 of those characters sideways, you draw 5 cards, you're gaining, somewhere between 7 and 10 lore, hopefully. Now if your opponent's able to challenge those characters, you're able to just refill the board the next turn. I think it'll be interesting to see, there's some other cards like Timon that can snipe out, non-characters from your hand. Of course, Mowgli. You've got the Ludwig von Drake. So as some of those cards may enter the meta, this card may end up falling out of favor. But I think this is one of those cards that, is doing something that Amber really wants to do, and Amber Steel as well. Again, one of those decks that they can quest everybody sideways and draw a bunch of cards, and it's just something that we were missing in some of these colors.
Yeah. Because also you have the new Carefree Snowboarder, which also wants to quest and draw cards, right? I think Amber might have gotten the most card draw this set.
I for sure did. Of the card draw that got added, Amber got the most, I think, followed by either Emerald or Ruby, but they're both very similar.
Mm-hmm.
They are.
We'll continue on with Amber. Next we have Grandmother Willow. So this is a card you said you were interested in playing to kind of have that lantern effect on a body, or that Pluto effect.
Yeah. So I really liked early in Steel Song, common lines that I would do, something like turn 1 Cinderella, turn 2 I'd play the Smee, and then turn 3, I'd play that Lantern to develop that I can, ramp to something like the Beast on turn 4, but then also still develop the board with a 2-drop, like another Smee or another Singer, before you drop that 5-drop body. And Grandmother Willow does that, but, almost a little bit better, being a 1/2 body, and, whatever character you play. Just opens up some really neat play lines, especially in Circle of Life Dogs, being able to develop her on turn 2 and still play another 1-drop. I could imagine something like turn 1, the 0/3 Lady, turn 2, Grandmother Willow, comboed with a Tramp. You're questing for 3. If they can't deal with that, you've got 3 characters. You're at 3 ink, and Mother Willow gives you that 1 extra, so you can play Tramp on turn 3 then, which opens up again some really unique play lines. Or you could play that Mickey Amber Champion that gives all your characters that extra 2 willpower. and it does it on a little bit of a unique body. So I think there's a lot of different lines that this card can use. I think whether it's viable or not will depend on if that 2 willpower is enough. If we start to see Fire the Cannons, Robot Queens, Darkwing Duck, if he becomes a card, maybe this will see less play because the 1/2 body might be a little too weak. Just to be there as a totem, meaning it just sits there every turn and lets you pay 1 less ink on a body, I think is very strong.
I just now realizing that you do not have to exert her for the ability.
Yeah. The only character we had like it was the Huey, and the Huey you had to quest in order to use his ability. So being able to leave her just upright and sit there.
If this were set 2, this would have ward.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe we can do some like broken stuff, right? Like maybe we can like turn 1 Lilo, or maybe we turn 1 Daisy, whatever. We play this on 2, and then we'll play like a Lilo for free, and then like 4 free Pudges, and then we play Doc next turn. I don't know what that card count is,
And
but
you still have no cards in hand.
Yeah.
but then we can recycle our docs from our great. We can shift Lilo, the Rockstar, and then we recycle the docs from the discard.
I think that shift Lilo is very interesting. The stat line is what has me a little concerned on it for being a 6-drop that's only a 3/5. Even if you shift it on 4, it may not be strong enough to live to do more than its ability wants. But there's so many great 2-drop cards that are in that color now. Between Mowgli, you've got some good bodyguards. There's Jim Deere has been power crept. There's now a 1/4 bodyguard instead of the 0/4. It's an inkable 2-drop. So to be able to bring back a bodyguard, maybe that's enough to protect that Rockstar Lilo. Doc being another obvious one.
We've seen something similar in the game with Perdita. So I believe on play and when she quests, she brought a 2-drop.
It was so annoying back in the day.
But yeah,
Amber Amethyst playing Perdita and like bouncing her with Pop Man. Nightmares.
Yeah, won the first DLC.
Speaking of characters in the discard, nope, never mind. That's not. It's the next slide after this. So we'll talk about Pete first.
This card's pretty cool.
I'm excited about this card as a Sapphire player. There's a lot of things that this opens up, but tell me what you're excited about it for us.
Yeah, so again, not a big fan of ramp strategies, but I just think this card is so obvious. It might make Ruby Sapphire finally playable again. Basically this card reads, it's develop your brain on a body. It's a free card draw every turn. Every time it turns sideways, you're gonna be able to grab whatever resource you need. I think the boost mechanic has gotten a lot of really interesting support this set. So being able to boost into this Pete, there's some other cheeky things you might be able to do in the Ruby Sapphire combination. There's the Pete that's the 7-drop that basically breeds when it enters play. If there's a Pete on the board, Dragonfire, any character. So being able to, you could play this Pete on turn 6 and boost it, when you're at 6 ink, boost it immediately. Then the following turn, you could quest it, hopefully find that Pete you're looking for, and then play it, and then remove a body. Could also make its way into green-blue, I think. Could be very interesting. And, with some of the other cards that have been revealed, Amber Sapphire may, rear its ugly head. And if it does, this is another card. When I look at a card, things I'm looking for, is it inkable or is it not? If it's not inkable, I normally kind of put it into I'll look at this card later pile, because a lot of times, if it's not inkable, it limits your decision making, and I like to be able to make decisions based on tempo and what's going on in the current board state. So this being inkable, it's got a good body as a 5/5. It's got the ally tag, so who knows, maybe Sapphire Steel will play this card. It's also a Pete, which triggers some unique things because the Pete deck, has always kind of, been possible, but not really. And then the develop your brain on a body is very powerful. And if this card sticks for more than one turn, your opponent's in trouble.
So what I like about it is kind of with the boost mechanic here is Sapphire's like, I'd play Sapphire Show items before everybody hopped on, like before set 7. And one of the things that I really got to enjoy was with like Scuttle and the Queen. getting multiple queens off, multiple queen triggers, is I basically got to a point where I knew what was in my deck in what order, right? So I'm looking at 4 cards, I pull an item out, I'm going to put whatever I want on top, usually removal. And I got to a point, and then I play vision, and we're just pushing all that stuff up. So this just gives you another way to do that. So if I vision a couple times, I've put 8 cards on the bottom of my deck. You know, I'm down to like, okay, I have 20 cards in my deck. Do I have another way to push some of those cards up or draw more cards? And this is just another way to do that.
Definitely.
Also, outside of Amber, there's not really a clean answer to it. So this card definitely should stick around maybe 1 to 2 turns. And if it is removed early, your opponent's also trading half their board into it.
I think Amber Sapphire, like the win con's got to be like Mufasa, right?
Right again.
We're gonna like ramp to like Mufasa.
The uninkable?
Yeah, like I think it's this time. Like we have a critical mass of ramp cards to get to that 8 ink, and then like that's got to be the win con of that deck, right? Because it can run a ton of removal, but like it needs a win con. So we're just...
It's possible. I mean, it's a strong body. It's well statted. It's difficult to remove. You know, again, problem with that Mufasa is the uninkability. And I just don't know if you could justify... I was a big Blurple fan before Blurple became popular. I played it at the SCG Con in Tampa. And, you know, I tried to make Mufasa work. And there are just so many games you see it and it's uninkable and you can't do anything with it and you lose the game as a result. So I think you really have to hit a critical mass of ramp where you can justify playing it and holding it in your hand for a couple turns. And sometimes when you're ramping, you don't have the ability to do that.
It's definitely something I want to look into this set because like in a couple sets, he's gone. You know, we got rotation coming up. But speaking of uninkables, this is now my segue. We have the board wipe. Rage of Storm. I do like that it's not a song. I do like that it costs 8. I think that's a fair cost. Because that was part of the thing with B Prep before was, you know, so many characters they would ramp to certain, like Ruby Amethyst or Ruby Sapphire. Basically, they have so many characters they're playing that can just sing it by itself. I think the only way that Be Prepared could have been more broken is if it was a sing together song. And inkable. Yeah. So again, I think this is another enchanted that a lot of people are going to chase. We're going to see a lot of these enchanted hitting boards. It's going to be legal for 2 years at least, right?
Yeah.
And you can now play 8 B preps in Ruby, Amber Ruby and Infinity if you want.
A lot of uninkables.
So this card's interesting.
I think,
because Amber's strategy is generally a go wide strategy. And you're hoping to win the game before you get to really this late in the game where the song can be played or this action can be played. But with this being an Amber, it's kind of awkward because it goes against the goal Amber's trying to set. So previously with Ruby, they could sing it with like Scar, Maldrag, whatever, 7 cost, Tamatoa, whatever, and then establish characters afterwards that continue to maintain the board state. So you have your Tremaines, your Medusas, your Sisus, your Brawl, stuff like that, always applied pressure to your opponent. Now, when you play this card, Amber doesn't really occupy that same niche. Most of their characters are either small weenies or they draw cards on ETB. So like when you play this, yes, you control the board now, but you're still behind in the race because you don't have the similar characters that Red used to have.
I mean, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. I think this could find a home in Amber Amethyst. Honestly, I think it kind of pushes Amber Amethyst into feeling almost like a pseudo red purple used to be. You know, now Amber's got Raging Storm. You've got World's Greatest Criminal Mind as removal. That's also inkable. You've got the inkable Horseman Strikes. So assuming evasives are still, you know, the Genie Wars or whatever it might be are still part of the meta. It's another strong removal card that also draws you a card. The Amethyst card package, in addition to some of the Amber cards that we've already talked about, give you that card draw. So, you know, this isn't a card you'd be ramping towards necessarily, but maybe as a 2 of or a 3 of, where you slowly build up your ink to a critical mass and then drop a Raging Storm to stabilize the board. And then from that turn on, you can continue to play card after card after card.
Hear me out. New Bell, Amber Sapphire. We're just going to play the thing. play the game. We get to a point where we want to play Raging Storm. We have Bell on board. So now just all of our stuff just goes into our Inkwell. Play Mufasa next turn.
Sounds like you're going to lose some games to Uninkables.
Yeah. Or aggro.
No,
Yeah, or aggro.
that's what T-Post's for, right? I'm not saying it's good, but these are things you can do. We can make Spooky Side a 2-card combo, okay? That costs 9 or 10, 12. Bells of 4.
Yeah. I mean, certainly you can go turn 2 ramp if you're playing this in Sapphire. Then you play Tipo, which can help you ink your uninkable cards if you have it. And then you can play into the Cinderella. Again, Cinderella's an unfortunately uninkable card, but can also help you with some of those uninkable problems.
Yo, if she was inkable, she'd be broken.
Crazy.
That card bricks my hand all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's crazy is before rotation, we had Fishbone, man. It was like no big deal playing like 18 uninkables in Sapphire Steel. And now, like, sometimes you'll be running 12 and you'll be like, why am I seeing all 12 of these uninkables?
Yeah.
I feel you though. I'm just spitballing random card interactions.
Yeah. No, I mean, this definitely will find a home somewhere. I wonder if the 8 cost is going to keep it from being as viable as something like B-Prep was, just because you could ramp up to 7, stabilize the board, and then you had enough removal and Ruby at the time to finish out the game. I think about Sisu. Sisu was so powerful as an 8-drop uninkable because she was a 5/4 body that also quested for 3, so immediately put you on a clock when you wiped your opponent's board. This not having a body attached to it definitely slows down the game a little bit. You still have to try and find a way to win the game after you play this, and I don't know what win conditions are there after you play an 8-drop. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you play the zombie Lilo and you bring back 4 zombie Lilos next turn, and I'm not sure.
So could you do some bag ordering where, let's say you have some Plutos or things down, right? Like where you can, because it's for the next character, right? So is there a theoretical world where you could play some of those exert, discount, or if you have lanterns where you could then play this and then maybe play out a couple characters? I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the wording on cards.
The issue with every single card you mentioned is they're all uninkable.
I'm ignoring that. I'm just thinking of card interactions, okay? I do expect to see this a lot in the first few weeks of the meta. I think that anybody that's playing Amber, and I think a lot of people are going to shift to playing Amber just because there's a lot of new toys. I do expect to see this a lot because it's a board wide. People are I'm going to play it because it exists.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it stays in the meta, it stays in those decks, that's another story.
Yeah. If this card becomes a part of the meta, it wouldn't surprise me if they've been pushing locations this set as well. And there's some pretty good ones. I could see, a location strategy then, falling into this, pretty well because the banish all characters, your location stay. One of the ways that I won a lot of my matchups, like I mentioned in Fort Worth, when I was playing the mirror matches, when they board wipe you, you drop a couple big locations that quest for 2, and they've removed their board and wasted a turn of tempo, and all of a sudden the game's over. So there's some really unique locations. There's the new 1-drop in Amber that's, I think, is Zootopia. It's just a 1, cost 1, 5 willpower, quest for 1 every turn. Maybe cards like that start to see play, or Library comes back into the fold. If this card becomes more popular, because that Library is a natural answer to this card as well.
I think this set's been very interesting. So there's obviously there's a lot of cards you look at them and you're like, okay, well, this will be really good in limited. And there's a lot of cards, like even Darkwing, I don't know if it's going to be, I'm going to try, but I don't know if it's going to be good core. But there's definitely, you look at some of these cards and you're like, there's immediate Infinity format implications. And I think we're thinking that way because we know the next DLC in North America is Infinity format. We do have another set coming out before then, so that it could all be upended and changed. Before you have Continentals, we might even be at rotation. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, Continentals is the end of August. So we're getting Wilds Unknown in May. So June, July, August, would be the release of the next set. So I don't know if rotation will happen before or after Continentals. That'll be kind of interesting for us to see.
That would be interesting if it happened before, because then it kind of puts you guys all in this weird spot where okay, well, there's all these cards we weren't playing, and now half the card pool's gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd be okay with, Elsa Fist Spirit going away and Genie going away.
Tipo, Sayo, also gone.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd lose your
Unfortunately,
dogs.
Tramp would probably follow along with them, but
Yeah, you lose a lot of the dogs.
Mhm.
yeah.
That'd be interesting. So before we go to the next slide, actually, I think I already asked you all the questions. So next up, we've got your deck list. What you're looking at early for set 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, I called that 2 Nannies in dogs.
2 Nanis.
I think she's absolutely insane.
I'm not
Yes.
surprised to see the Mulan here at all.
Yeah, Mulan obviously was the natural fit. I'm sure if you're on the Twitter space or in any of the Discords or anything, you've seen some of the response to the Mulan, the 1/4 stat line, really relevant. It's a great body naturally, and then that ability to just quest for up to 6 in a turn. You can really put on the jets. You see that card and Tramp obviously just boosts it right to 6 immediately, as wide as this deck can go. You couple that with cards like Webby, Vanderquack that's already been in the deck that gives a character boost 1 or strength +1. So you play a 1-drop on 1, you play Mulan on 2, you play a couple characters, maybe an Ursula or a Mowgli on 3, coupled with a Webby. Your Mulan could still be a 2/4 that quests for 2. Is very powerful. But the ability to high roll into something like turn 1, the 0/3 lady, turn 2, Mulan, turn 3, triple 1-drop with a Tramp targeting your Mulan. You're going to quest for 9 lore between your lady and your Mulan. You're probably following that up with, a 1-drop Daisy Duck or maybe another lady. And all of a sudden, you're to the races. But at the same token, I mentioned earlier, there's the 1/4 bodyguard, the Jim Deere replacement, which I think is Nani's, what's his name? David, Nani's boyfriend. And being a 1/4 body on a bodyguard as a 2-drop is really strong. So you could even do some cute lines like, if you play Elanwi on 1, turn 2, you play Mulan. Turn 3, you could play David plus Webby. Your Mulan gets 1 strength from the Webby. If you quest with your Elanwi, Mulan gets another 2 strength. Now your Mulan is questing for 4. You have a 1/4 bodyguard protecting it. Plus you've got the Webby established. Even if they can deal with the 1/4 David, the next turn you're still able to develop more bodies, maybe a Tramp to allow Mulan to quest again. Seems very powerful. Obviously having access to the Ursulas and the Mowgli still is very powerful. Nani kind of replaces that Clarabelle from the earlier builds, just being able to search any of those pieces that you might need, whether it's a go-go for game, a Tramp to boost your Mulan, the Mulan if that's what you're digging for. The Elanwi, I think, fits better into this build as well, because now you've got multiple targets that you're trying to boost the strength, not just the lady, but also the Mulan. So I think that's some really interesting synergy there. One card you may be surprised to see in there is Snowfort. If you notice, there's no Chromacon in this build. I haven't been able to test this too much yet, so some of this is just me theory crafting, and I think a lot of what the meta does will dictate how this deck ultimately shapes up. There's probably another 20 or 25 cards I've got kind of all earmarked as potential cards that could fit into this strategy. But the Snowfort, giving all your characters +1 strength, again, works great with the Mulan, because now your Mulan is a 2/4, so she's questing for 2 every turn as opposed to 1, regardless of any other synergy you have with her. And then on your opponent's turn, all your characters having that +1 resist. To make a 7-drop Tramp, a 3/6 that also has resist +1 makes it extremely difficult to deal with. In addition to just some of the other bodies, making a Daisy Duck a 2/4 resist 1, making that David bodyguard a 2/4 resist 1. That's also part of the reason I have 4 Ursula in the build and 3 Mowgli. Normally I would have that switched, but that extra 1 willpower on Ursula makes a difference, especially when you're using Snowfort. Couple that with the new Ohana Means Family. I've mentioned some of this earlier, but being able to Rapunzel trap, you've got the Daisy Duck that's a 1/4, you've got the David that's a 1/4, the Mulan that's a 1/4, and then the tramp that are all key targets that you can easily get 3 to 4 damage on. And with Snowfort, allows you to make some more positive trades in addition to the Webby and the tramp that then you Ohana Means Family and just refuel your hand right back up. I don't think, because it's not a 1/5 quest for 2 body like Rapunzel is, I don't think it'll be a 4 of. I think players will still try and play around that card. So it'll probably be something you're looking to find off of the tramp. But you can also catch your opponent off guard by just playing your 1-drop characters or your 2-drop 1/4s. And then if they decide to be greedy and quest with a Calhoun, which really shouldn't happen anymore, now suddenly you can draw a bunch of cards off of it. Though, Wisdom of the Willow, again, being one of those kind of high power cards, because it's uninkable, I don't think you can justify playing more than one, probably. If you find it off the tramp, great. You play 1-drop on 1, maybe 2 1-drops on 2, a 1-drop and a 2-drop on 3. Turn 4, you play your tramp and you find your Wisdom of the Willow. Then turn 5, you play it, you turn everybody sideways, gain a bunch of lore, draw a bunch of cards, and you can continue to I think go a little bit higher with this strategy, which I think is what's interesting. Is Dogs has always been a deck that I know everyone describes as an aggro deck, but I think in a lot of ways I saw it as it was masquerading as an aggro deck, but really it was more a mid-range and sometimes a control deck. I don't know any control or aggro strategies that were playing a board wipe like Under the Sea previously. And with Chromacon, it allowed it to play a little bit of a mid-range strategy. You could hold back your tramp 2-drops and surprise your opponent. If they tried to become the aggro player, you suddenly make some positive trades. And with this card draw now in the build between Nani, the Shift Lady, Ohana Means Family, Wisdom of the Willow, you can kind of progress your board state and play a little bit slower, more control game in the matchups that it's necessary. Coupled with the Snowfort, the resist +1 on everybody just makes it really hard for your opponent to make positive trades, and also helps you set up for that Ohana Means Family, because there may be times where your opponent's forced to put damage on a character just to make sure that they can clear your board the next turn. And so it sets up some really interesting interactions.
I'm going to tell you that this looks great.
Yeah, this list is insane.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, you as you're describing it, I'm looking at it and I'm like, you're doing all the things that you wanted to do last set anyway, and then more. I think this is a excellent starting point, and I wouldn't be surprised if depending on how the meta shapes up, if a lot of this kind of remains standard in like Dogs going forward. But this is just insane. Losing the Chromacon obviously is unfortunate, but I think the Snowfort kind of fits right into that role. And being able to drop, if you can find 2 Snowforts and get those developed where everything has +2 strength and +2 resist, good luck trading into this board. And then your Mulans are questing for 3 no matter when you play them. Your ladies are almost always questing for 3. Just really slots right into this deck really easily. And the other thing is, I don't know if Under the Sea will still be a part of the meta or not, but the Snowfort giving that +1 strength, you saw it with Lumiere and how powerful that card was, and making it harder for you to Under the Sea an opponent's board. This Snowfort kind of acts the same way. A lot of times you'll have to get 2 of them out because we don't have a lot of 2 strength characters in this build, but leaving 1 or 2 bodies on the board sometimes is all you need in this deck. So, some really cool lines. You can go, turn 1, maybe Lady, turn 2, 2 more 1-drops. Turn 3, you can develop the Snowfort if you're on the draw. So even if they Elsa one of your characters, it's going to take multiple bodies to trade into one of your bodies. And on the play, you can play 1-drop, 2-drop, or 2 more 1-drops. And then on turn 3, you play a 2-drop and a 1-drop. Hopefully you're finding, the David to be your bodyguard or a Mulan in there, or you could play the Ursula or Mowgli, depending on the matchup. And then your turn 4, you play Snowfort and you turn everybody sideways. One of the downsides of Dogs, and one of the things that Chromacon allowed was as your opponent tried to make favorable trades, their characters would survive, typically with only 1 or 2 damage on them. And then you'd bounce one of the other characters. Well, now Snowfort puts you in a position where maybe some of those things aren't
positive trades. Instead, it's a negative trade for them, where they're putting 2 or 3 damage on something, which also sets up for easy go-go's, but they're also going to lose more of their characters, which I kind of theorize is going to eliminate the need for a Chromacon.
As a previous Cogsworth player, I am very jealous of Snowfort.
Yeah. The amount of times people make challenges not noticing resist exists will definitely change the whole scope of this entire deck. And me as a blue steel player, if I don't see my Plutos and a Snowfort sticks, Tinks do nothing. So it really kind of neutralizes the higher end that blue steel currently has. So we're definitely gonna have to alter a lot moving forward.
Yeah, Cogsworth was like one of my all-time favorite cards, and he's missed. And it's like this Snowfort to me is just insane. It's Lumiere plus like half a Cogsworth, and it's just insane.
I mean, obviously it's unfortunate that it's not resist all the time. It's only on your opponent's turn, so you sometimes can't make the favorable trades that you'd like to on your own, but you can force your opponent into some really awkward situations with it on their turns.
Well, Forrest, I think we've been yapping for almost an hour and a half. This has been awesome. Let me stop sharing the screen for a second. Any last thoughts on the deck before I take it off the screen?
No, obviously, like I said, I don't know where some of the other color combinations will go and what we'll be seeing. So there's a lot of cards in this list that, the numbers may change. This deck could certainly turn a little bit more mid-range if it needed to, where, you can play more cards like Nani. One of the things I kind of always struggle with is sometimes I gravitate towards fair cards. Nani to me seems really just a fair card. It's a 3/3 body for 3. It draws you 1 card. It's kind of in a way like a genie, but it doesn't quest for 2, and it, but a similar stat line, and it's not evasive. So cards like that may make their way out of the deck because it may not be necessary, especially with some of the other card draw that's in here. Playing 4 Mowgli, 4 Ursula may be necessary depending on if we're seeing that board wipe come into play. I could also see Nani turning into Timon possibly if that board wipe, is prevalent, like the way maybe some people will be trying. But in the flip side, there's also a world I could see where if everybody's playing Amber, everybody might be playing Mowgli. And might be playing Timon, in which case cards like Ohanamin's Family has less value. And so we may have to, shift numbers or how the deck, plays based on what the meta does.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fair. Maybe switching to some of the new Stitch or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, Pudge. Pudge is a really interesting card. I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons I like the 2-drop Tramp is it's a 2-drop singer you can play as a 1-drop. And Pudge is a 2-drop singer you can play for free. That seems insane. Combo that with the Lilo, the 1/2 1-drop Lilo that quests for 2 and you have a Stitch in play. There is a 1-drop Inkable Stitch that's going out the set that's a 2/1. So, it's possible that could slide naturally right in here. As a top end, if it looks like we need to become more character focused, that Shift Lilo may slot naturally into here because you can bring back the David Bodyguard, or you could even play the Prince if you could afford the Uninkables. In addition to being able to shift Lilo, bring back a Go-Go and gain the lore you need to win for game, or a Tramp to boost your Mulan, from your discard pile as you cycle through a Tramp. That could also very easily slot in here depending on, if Ohanamin's Family or, how the meta develops. So a lot of different interesting ways that this could morph as the meta moves forward.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I do want to say thank you for coming on for us. It's been awesome listening about your DLC run. Thank you for sharing the deck list. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I do want to ask you just kind of a generic question. Do you have any tips for or advice for players who maybe want to go and try to make that DLC run, or maybe get a little more competitive?
Yeah. So first thing I would say is, health, nutrition, leading up to the event and the day of is really important. While you guys were busy testing and changing your deck and adding in Mother Gothel, or not Mother Gothel, excuse me, Fairy Godmother at 11:30 the night before the DLC, I was already well in bed, resting, so I could get up the next morning.
Smart move.
I think it's important that you have. Yeah.
We're blue steel players.
Yeah.
You just find your ramp and you win.
Yeah, and that's the hope, right? So I think that's important. I think practicing your shuffling is also something that goes under the radar sometimes. A lot of newer players, you'll notice they struggle to constantly, they say 7 good shuffles should randomize your deck enough. But, I notice a lot of times when people are shuffling, maybe they're not hitting every other card is being shuffled, or they're not varying whether take the bottom third of your deck and shuffle that in, and then take the top third of your deck and shuffle that in. So that way you get a little bit more randomization in your deck, and really try and practice that. You can, if you're not sure how to shuffle or what kind of way you like to shuffle based on your hand size.
You should do a video.
Watch some videos, see a DLC, and just watch some of the pro players and see how they shuffle. Because I think sometimes those natural bricking occurs because you aren't optimally randomizing your deck. I think health and nutrition is really important. I intermittent fast when I go through DLCs, but I do that naturally, and that works well for me. That doesn't work well for everybody. But, I think we have a tendency when we go to these big tournaments where you're playing, 7, 8, 9 rounds in a day, it's really draining on you. And so you need to have things that are healthy and good for you, as opposed to having a burger and fries from the concession stand. So bringing, something healthy, pushing water, especially leading up to the event. Eliminate decision fatigue as much as possible. I think we all have that. The classic is you get home at the end of the day and you go, what am I having for dinner? And you've made so many decisions throughout the day, you can't figure out or pick what you want for dinner. And the same thing holds true when you're playing a card game. So, eliminating as much of that decision fatigue, have whatever you're going to wear to the DLC ready to go, the day before that big tournament. Don't be trying to pick what mat am I going to use, or, just eliminate as much of those decisions as you can so you can focus on making the decisions that matter. I think that's really important. I also think practice mulliganing and see what that would look like. I always, if I'm at locals and I'm mulliganing, if I'm trying to decide between maybe 3, 4, or 5 cards, once I decide, before I shuffle my deck, I'll look at what those next 1 or 2 cards are to see, okay, how would that have affected, had I done this, what sort of lines would have been available to me? I know that sometimes, even though you can mulligan 5, 6, or 7, you don't necessarily have to mulligan 5, 6, or 7. Sometimes you have a tendency to want to mulligan away an inkable card to maybe see if you find something that's more high rolly. And then you draw that uninkable 8-drop board wipe and you go, oh, man, if only I had 1 more ink, I would have been able to play my Genie on 4 or my Elsa on 5. And so, sometimes it's okay to not mulligan and keep a hand that's full of bad uninkables or inkable cards that are not good in that matchup, just so you can ink them early and know that you're not going to draw into those later, because sometimes that could be a reason that you lose.
Yeah, you always need that additional ink.
Yeah.
I was like, you missed out on this opportunity right there.
I figured I'd put it in there a couple times. I didn't need to do 1 more.
We got to start doing a counter. I don't know if I'll do it for this episode.
Oh, no. Before this, I was like, Forrest, let's crack some additional ink jokes.
Yeah. I think those are all great tips. Specifically, I want to touch on the shuffling for a second, because I'll be honest with you, prior to Lorcana, I hadn't played TCGs in like 20 years, right? It'd been a long time. I was a kid, right? Playing like Pokemon and Magic, whatever. But shuffling was something where I realized that I had a weakness on, and I really noticed it watching the first couple season DLCs, because there were a lot of players, even who you would consider pro players, who you watch shuffle, they're really bad shufflers. And I literally would go to work, and now full disclosure, I'm not like getting rid of my work duties to do this, but like in downtime, I got to the point where like I would walk around with a deck. It was just like, I think art cards sleeved up, right? Because I didn't want to mess any cards up. And I would just sit there and I would shuffle. And I would shuffle. And that helped me. And then also what helped me was when I started double sleeving. I know double sleeving helps. Some people don't like shuffling with double sleeve. Some people do. I found for me that it helped making sure that I'm hitting that every other card.
It's so much easier in my opinion as well.
Yeah, see, so I think it's more difficult to shuffle when it's dual sleeved. So I prefer single sleeves if I can. Just something about it. And over the course of the day, I found in the tournaments where I've double sleeved, towards the end of the tournament, my hands are starting to get a little tired from the the heavier shuffling, especially if you're playing a lot of 3 games instead of 2. And so I prefer single sleeve. But I think also the sleeve that you choose matters a lot in that too, because every sleeve shuffles a little differently. For Christmas, I had a friend of mine give me some sleeves that were curved in the corners, and you have to shuffle them an entirely different way than what I normally would shuffle. And so I always kind of had to keep that in mind as I was shuffling those new sleeves. I didn't use those at Richmond. I knew better. I used the sleeves that I'm normally comfortable with at a DLC at that tournament. So I think that play around with the different sleeves types, find
what's comfortable for you, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's
different.
I know some players who have their deck triple sleeved for, their reasons, and they want to protect their cards, but then they kind of struggle to shuffle. So they kind of they'll shuffle, but instead of it being in their hands, they're kind of using the table, they're setting stuff sideways on the table. And you just got to kind of find what works for you. Just don't be that guy that wants to pile shuffle between every game. Don't be that guy.
No. I normally pile shuffle either at the beginning or the end of every round. And the reason I do that is to make sure I have the accurate card count. You hear the story about Jonathan Williams when he was at Continentals last year and missing a Maui Shark. I don't ever want to be put in one of those situations where I'm missing one of my cards. And so normally at the end of every round is when I'll do my pile shuffle just to make sure everything's there, or at the beginning of the next round before the match starts.
Yeah. For me, it kind of depends on how the match went. If it's one of those where I want to get it from the table quickly, we're not doing it afterward.
One other tip, Fungus posted on X about, what are tips that, he could provide to people. And one of the comments that I provided to him was, know when to stop inking. I think as we've had Amethyst be such a powerhouse and a common color combination this format, you're seeing a lot of individuals who, because they have 5 or 6 cards in their hand, they just go, okay, I'm going to ink mindlessly every turn. And they'll have 2 Elsa Fist Spirits, and they'll ink one. And then 3 turns later, they go, oh, I need an Elsa Fist Spirit to keep them, exert that character and clear up the board. And they don't find it because they inked it 3 turns earlier when they really didn't need to ink anymore. Every time you ink, it's one more card coming away from a card or a resource you can use later. That's one of the reasons when I started playing the Dogs deck was I was playing more of the high end of the curved decks. And I found that I was, sometimes inking when I shouldn't be inking anymore. And when you do ink, you want to know what you're inking to and why. When I played Red Purple, I knew I would stop at 12 ink. And the reason I do that, and I didn't always get to 12 ink. A lot of times I'd stop at 11. And the reason I do that is I knew if I could prep the board and then ink a card and play a Queen's Castle, a lot of those games that I could get to that critical mass, I would win. But you didn't need to ink to 13 or 14 to do that. And I think every deck has a number in mind, and you need to figure out what that number is and what those lines are, and know the reason why you might be inking past that point. Most decks 5 or 6 ink, unless you're in a ramp type strategy, is more than enough. You don't need to play out your whole hand in one turn.
I absolutely agree. I thought of another tip while you were talking about inking. Sometimes it's okay to concede games. I know that we always talk about our players always talk about playing to your outs, knowing what your outs are, what your opponent may have. But there are a lot of times where people go to time because they don't want to admit to they're like, oh, you'll watch games and a player will just be completely locked out. But then we're going to spend another 15, 20 minutes just going through these motions where we're chipping away and this, that, and the other, ultimately just to waste a lot of time, especially at a DLC where you have 3 rounds and you're in game 2 and you're wasting 30 minutes when you already played a 20-minute game. Then you're going to have 10 minutes left to play game 3. So knowing when to kind of scoop sometimes is a very important skill as well.
I would agree with that 100%. Knowing when to concede is really important, or knowing when there's no way for you to possibly win and you're not going to get any value out of this. So just move on to the next game. Unless you're playing against a deck that you have no idea what it does and you're trying to figure out, what cards they're playing to know how to play that extra game, save the time and move on.
Yeah. Well, okay. We've been chatting for over an hour and a half now. So Again, Forrest, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Welcome
you for
back
having me.
anytime. Eric, you've been quiet today. I want you to talk more next time.
This opportunity for the community to see who Forrest is,
100%.
I think he has a wealth of knowledge. Just the way he talks is very direct, very elaborate, and very well thought out.
I want to pick Forrest's brain more.
That's the thing, is like, as a local player, seeing this dude play, he's galaxy brained. And then listening to him talk about the game shows he has like such a deeper knowledge of this game than most people have. Just the viewers and the listeners learning from him is so significant in this.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. My final question is, do you have any shout outs?
Any shout outs? Okay, so first, of course, shout out to Sarah, my fiance. The reason I'm able to play this game and all the support that she gives. Shout out to you, Oceans. You and then Mario.
Dude, Mario's the goat.
They're cheering me on at the DLC. Also, Willowbees was there cheering me on all the way up to my top 32 match. Shout out to Freddie Rivera. He and I had kind of similar runs at the tournament. He ended up top 16ing with Blurple, but he and I played on a feature match at SSG back after he had won the 10K there. My name is Forrest, and he'd put down a dog that was of that name or was Bubba or Gumps. And, he thought I was joking when I said my name was Forrest when we played on stream that match. And so, he and I have stayed in touch, and it was really, really awesome to see him succeed the way he did at the top tables. Shout out to our local Southwest Florida community. So, some of you have probably seen the Only Lore shirts around. So a lot of our community wears those shirts and represents. That's how we're Southwest Florida. So shout out to that crew as well.
Well, I'm excited to meet you in person at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to connect.
We can all go to Disney together.
That's true.
Let's do it. We're pass holders, so
that's
happy to go anytime.
Well, so me and Cam are going to Ghent, and we're actually flying out of Orlando. And we're going to go down a day early and do a day in the park. So it might be like a Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. But we'll chat. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere on social media where people can find you?
Yeah. So, I'm on X. It's Bubba Gumps. So you'll be able to find me. That's what I use on PlayHub. It's also my name on Instagram if you want to follow me on there. I know Oceans will tell you, I'm kind of under the radar. I think a lot of people don't know me or who I am because I kind of stay, a little quiet and reserved. I'm happy to share my knowledge with people, but, I'm not super active on social media. I will follow things. I'll like things. I'll comment when there's something interesting, but I'm a little under the radar.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm excited to see what you do at Continentals.
Thank you.
What is your next event that you're planning on attending?
Next event, I'd love to be able to go to Ghent. I just don't think it's going to be able to happen. So I'm an estate planning attorney, and I started my own practice towards the latter half of last year. Staying pretty busy with that. But, I'm able to make my own hours now, which is also great. So maybe if there's a last minute ticket and a good deal on a flight, maybe I'll try and go there. I wanted to go to Charlie's, but with it being in Texas instead of Atlanta, little harder for me to get there. So maybe if I can squeeze that through, I'll be there. But, obviously now that I have my Continentals invite, I'm not as motivated to try and hit up some of the CCQs. So I'm maybe just doing more practice locally, or online, trying to get ready for Continentals.
That's fair. Well, if those of you out there listening, watching, we will have some additional Ink people at Ghent, at Ink Inc., and at CCS Houston. We're not all going to all of them because the time frame is insane. Yeah, I'm ready for CCS to bring the events back to Atlanta. We've been kind of spoiled with them being in this region. But I'm sure they'll be back at some point. But yeah, let me, once again, thank you. I cannot thank you enough. We'll link all your socials in the description. Eric, do you have any shout outs or where people can find you?
Find me here. Find me on X at Oceans Tempest. Find me in the Blue Steel Discord on Lore. I'm sure I'm posting about how bad the deck is to secretly deter everyone from not playing it.
Advertise the secret Blue Steel Discord in public, okay?
It's
we don't do
the
that.
secretest Discord now.
The even more secret. Yeah. Whoa, no, we're just... Listen, we were traumatized by a ban, okay? It happens.
I was only depressed for like 4 weeks.
So I will let you in on some inside baseball. I just played CCS with the item, build. And, I'm at work. The ban gets announced. People are blowing my phone up, asking if I'm okay. I don't know what's going on. I get home the next day. We had just recorded a gameplay video with the deck I played at CCS, and I hadn't even edited it yet. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to lose the footage. So we put it out and the video's there, but there's like another 40 minutes of me talking about the deck and High Room. And there's ugly tears and everything else that I cut out. It was bad. It was emotional. It was bad. But anyway.
He was not the problem. It was the one drop items, unfortunately, that killed him.
I'll stand by. Forrest Miller would have been left alone. We would have been fine, and Ravensburger didn't ban it in Japan. So, yeah. But their meta is going to be different because they've got Fable cards and all that too.
Yeah, it's going to be insane.
And they're not rotating till set 17.
I know. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll wake up and they'll be like, rotation is gone.
No, we'll see 13 and be like, what are we doing?
Hey, I don't care as long as the Toy Story cards are good.
I mean, Buzz looks pretty nice at dogs, to be honest.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I'm hoping Woody is Amber and, we'll be off cooking again.
I still want more of the Disney Saturday morning cartoon stuff, the Disney afternoon stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I have a fear that once we start with Pixar, that the sets are going to be all Pixar. Because there's enough that they could do that. I hope that's not the case. I don't think that'll be the case. But everyone's going to be really excited about Toy Story, Incredibles, Turning Red, all that stuff. And then it's going to be like, but can I get another Darkwing card? Can I get Gummy Bears? So I don't think that'll be the problem, but that's just my little fear.
I think it's a valid fear. When you look at the set, it's really pushing Lilo and Stitch, Darkwing Duck. And that's really Frozen's getting pushed a lot too. So maybe they're going to start picking, 3 main themes and, moving forward.
Pocahontas.
It'll be Pocahontas too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's Lilo and Stitch a series and we did not get Leroy. I know there's 2 cards left.
Didn't we get a Leroy?
No.
Isn't he the 1/3 sandwich?
No, that's Reuben.
Reuben, you're right.
Just like the sandwich, the Reuben.
Yeah. Yeah, I never put that together.
I just did right now.
Yeah.
More you know.
Yeah.
But thank you everybody for tuning in and hanging out with me, Eric, and Forrest today. Remember, here at Additional Link, we believe there's plenty of space at the table for everybody. There's plenty of ink to go around. Stay tuned for your next drop of Additional Link soon. If you've been coming back, thank you for coming back and supporting us. If you haven't, like and subscribe. If you like what you see, come back. We also do some gameplay. It's been a minute since we got a gameplay video, but there's one coming up probably soon. ETA, unknown. But all right, guys, you all have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.